Have you already died today? If teleportation existed like in science fiction works, this could be a real question. Imagine this: a machine capable of disintegrating your body here and reconstructing it on the other side of the planet, or the galaxy, in a matter of seconds. It seems like the pinnacle of human progress. No traffic, long flights, or geographical barriers. A revolution that would change travel, medicine, even space colonization. But there's a problem. And it's bigger than the technology. For a machine like this to actually work, it would have to completely destroy your body and brain, and then reconstruct them somewhere else using new atoms and molecules. The new you would have the same memories, the same behavior, even the same laugh. The question is, would it still be you? Or just a perfect replica, convinced that it's continuing your life? Here begins the identity paradox, a dilemma that puts at stake not only science, but existence itself. This question takes us to the limit of what we understand about consciousness, self-identity, and continuity of the self. Neuroscience still doesn't know how consciousness emerges. Physics imposes restrictions on perfect cloning of matter. Meanwhile, philosophy of mind has been debating for millennia what makes us who we are. And perhaps, in the end, the greatest threat of teleportation isn't physical, but metaphysical. Because if the copy lives normally, who is it that disappeared in the process? The idea of a teleportation machine may seem magical, but let's treat it as a real technical problem. To work, it would have to scan your entire body with absurd precision. Every cell, every connection in your brain, every position of every atom and molecule. The amount of data involved is astronomical. The human brain alone has about 86 billion neurons, with trillions of synapses. And it's not just the physical structure that counts, but the exact functional state you're in at that moment. Capturing all of this would be like trying to pause a hurricane without losing a single drop of water. Even if it were possible to scan all of this, a problem from quantum physics itself arises. The no-cloning theorem prohibits perfect copying of quantum states. In other words, you can't simply make an exact replica of your body without altering the original. Here we reach a shocking but inevitable conclusion. The only realistic form of teleportation would involve the complete destruction of the original, to then reconstruct a copy at the destination. The new version would be built with other atoms, based on data collected from the you that came before. Now the uncomfortable question: is this still you, or just a replica that thinks it is? The copy could have the same memories, the same way of thinking, the same tastes and personality traits. To friends and family, there would seem to be no difference. However, according to neuroscience, the problem lies in the process. Continuous brain activity was interrupted. The new you wouldn't have biological continuity with the previous one, but rather a reconstruction from data. This discovery puts us at a crossroads between science and philosophy. Is identity just replicable information, or does something arise from the uninterrupted activity of our biological brain? The question of personal identity gains a new level of complexity when we put science alongside philosophy. Imagine that a machine scans and destroys your body, and then assembles a perfect copy somewhere else. Physically, everything seems in order. The new you has the same structure, the same brain, even the same electrical impulses. The question is whether consciousness was actually transferred, or if it simply got lost the moment the original was destroyed. This dilemma is very well represented by an ancient metaphor, the ship of Theseus. If all the parts of a ship are replaced over time, is it still the same ship? And if the old parts are used to build another identical ship, which is the real one? This paradox has no simple answer, but it serves as a model for thinking about cases of bodily reconstruction, cloning, and of course, teleportation. The difference is that now the parts are your atoms, and the identity at stake is yours. If this made you curious, we have a complete video here on the channel exploring the ship of Theseus, with current examples and deeper implications. It will appear in the end cards of this video. However, what matters is understanding that, even with all the precision of science, the question, who is the original, still remains open. From this comes the next step. Understanding what, after all, makes up this you. Scientifically speaking, the human being is an extremely complex biological machine. We are composed of trillions of atoms and molecules, organized into cells, tissues, organs, all functioning in harmony. The brain, in particular, is responsible for processing information, storing memories, and generating behavior. But despite all this knowledge of biology and neuroscience, we still can't fully explain how consciousness arises. This sensation of being alive, of being someone inside. The question goes beyond the physical body. What makes you be you isn't just your DNA or your face in the mirror, but your subjective experience, your sense of self-identity, your life story. Even with all the advances in artificial intelligence and brain mapping, we still can't recreate self-awareness, that inner voice that thinks, feels, and remembers. You can copy a brain, but so far, there's no proof that this generates the same inner presence. Science still doesn't know if this is an emergent property of matter or something more subtle. That's why many experts believe that personal identity isn't just a matter of structure, but of continuous functioning, and perhaps even environmental contexts. It's not enough to have an identical brain, it needs to be alive in the functional and dynamic sense. Personal singularity may be the result of billions of micro-interactions between body, environment, and time. Thus, even a perfect copy of you, without this continuous history, might not be you. From this arises the next question. Do memories suffice to guarantee who we are? In biology, everything we are depends on continuous processes. Synapses, electrical impulses, chemical chain reactions. The human brain operates as a living system in constant activity. The continuity of identity depends on this uninterrupted activity. Any abrupt failure, like in clinical death, erases this flow. Therefore, if a teleportation machine completely shuts down your brain to reconstruct it elsewhere, there's a total break in this system. Technically, it's like turning off a computer and turning on another with the same files. The question is, who guarantees that the operating system will be the same? According to neuroscience, your consciousness isn't just in the data stored in the brain, it depends on neural activity in real time. Experiments with comatose patients show that, without this activity, there's no self-perception, even if the brain is physically intact. This point raises a problem. An exact copy of your brain, without the continuous line of functioning, would be just a cold reproduction of the structure, and not the original conscious experience. The new you would have the same hardware and even the same software, but would be starting from scratch in terms of conscious experience. In physics, particularly in quantum mechanics, information transport faces fundamental limitations. The famous quantum no-cloning theorem states that it's impossible to exactly copy an unknown quantum state. Since the brain depends on quantum processes at the microscopic scale, this means that perfect teleportation as imagined is unfeasible without destruction of the original. Such a situation reinforces the idea that, instead of transferring you, the process creates something else. It might be identical in everything, but the original subjective identity may not have crossed over. At first glance, it might seem like yes. If a copy of you remembers everything you've lived, it continues being you, right? In the view of neurology, memory is a fundamental part of identity construction. It shapes behaviors, values, preferences. There are even clinical cases where, after severe brain trauma, people with deep amnesia report not recognizing themselves anymore. This shows that losing memory can be, in a way, losing oneself. It remains to be seen if maintaining it is enough to preserve consciousness. Modern neuroscience shows that memories aren't fixed files, but mental reconstructions that change over time. Our brain constantly updates memories. This means that the you of now is no longer exactly the same as years ago, even remembering the same things. Such a discovery reveals that personal identity is plastic, but depends on a continuous process. A copy that receives all your memories at once, as if installing software, didn't live through this process. It has the data, but it doesn't have the path you traveled to get to them. Considering the technological perspective, it's possible to imagine a future where a complete mind upload is made. Even if this copy behaves like you, thinks like you, and has all your recollections, the original you wouldn't feel this transition. You, as subjective experience, would be dead, while a replica acts as if nothing happened. The new being may believe it's you. The question is it really? This question takes us straight to the limit between memory and consciousness, and prepares us for the central question that won't go away. After all, who are you? After everything we've discussed, the simplest question ends up being the most difficult. Who are you? We're led to think that our self-identity is something solid, constant. However, as science advances and philosophy pokes us with millennial questions, we realize that maybe we're more fragile than we imagined. If a machine can copy your memories, your body, even your way of speaking, what remains that is uniquely yours? Where does the set of information end and the living experience begin? This doubt isn't new. From Plato and Aristotle to current debates about philosophy of mind, thinkers have been trying to understand what makes us be. Some bet on materialism. Everything we are is the result of matter organized in a complex way. Others suggest there's something immaterial, something that science hasn't reached yet, an essence, perhaps. And even though there's no consensus, one thing is clear. Individual consciousness, your personal singularity, continues being an open mystery. And maybe it always will be. However, isn't this precisely what makes everything more fascinating? Asking "who am I" might not give us a definitive answer, but it forces us to look inward and question existence itself. In the end, understanding that we are beings in constant transformation, influenced by body, brain, environment, and time, is perhaps the first real step towards self-knowledge. And before you think about getting into a teleportation machine, maybe it's worth reflecting. Do you want to be transported or replaced? In the end, maybe we'll never have a definitive answer about what makes us who we are. But it's exactly this uncertainty that drives us forward. Reflecting on teleportation, identity, and consciousness goes far beyond science fiction. It's an invitation to question what we normally accept without thinking. Each doubt planted is a seed of future clarity. And only those who allow themselves to doubt truly learn. If this video awakened more questions than answers in you, great. Because growing isn't about memorizing certainties, but about learning to look at the world with more depth. The philosophy of mind, the limits of neuroscience, the enigmas of existence, all of this doesn't just serve to feed curiosity, but to make us more conscious of ourselves. Deep down, asking, "Who am I?" might be the most courageous of acts. So, keep exploring, questioning, provoking thought. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and follow the next episodes of this journey through the mind, through science, and through everything we still can't explain. Because knowledge is just the beginning.